Have you ever imagined waking up in a completely different world, where the Earth suddenly stopped spinning? What would the landscape be like out there? And more than that, what would happen to us, human beings, who depend so much on the rhythm of day, night, seasons, and natural cycles? If you think this idea is crazy, know that, despite being very unlikely, this possibility has been intriguing scientists and curious people for decades. And today I'm going to take you on a real journey, bringing together scientific theories, real examples of how small phenomena already affect us daily, and delving into the possible extreme scenarios that would happen if, for some reason, our planet abruptly stopped its rotation. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to tell you shocking details about the weather, earthquakes, storms, and even our ability to survive on a planet that has completely lost its axis of rotation, and I guarantee that you'll be very surprised. To begin, let's understand why the Earth spins and where this rotation speed that impacts our lives so much came from. Our planet's rotation is not a coincidence. It started way back when the Earth was formed approximately 4.5 billion years ago. During that period, constant collisions with other celestial bodies, such as giant asteroids and even protoplanets, gave our globe an even more intense rotation force. In fact, geological and astronomical studies indicate that, in the past, a day on Earth did not even reach 24 hours. Research shows that the rotation was faster, and the day lasted around 22 hours. Over time, due to the gravitational interaction with the Moon, this rotation gradually slowed down, and today our 24 hours are the standard we know so well. But of course this slowdown did not stop there. According to measurements, the days continue to get slightly longer as the centuries go by, gaining about 1.7 milliseconds every 100 years. Although this is almost imperceptible to us, over millions of years this can make a difference, to the point of adding an extra hour to our days. But could the Earth really stop spinning one day? And if it did stop, what drastic consequences would await us? Imagine that the Earth suddenly slowed down and we stopped spinning along with it. In this hypothetical scenario, one of the first principles that comes into play is Isaac Newton's law of inertia. If the planet came to a standstill without warning, everything on the surface, people, cars, oceans, air, clouds, would still tend to maintain a speed of almost 1,666 kilometers per hour at the equator. This means that we would be thrown violently forward, which could generate unimaginable hurricanes, as the atmosphere would continue to move and drag everything around it. Tsunamis of unimaginable proportions and tectonic plate shifts would be inevitable. The mainland would shake, chasms would appear, and ocean waves would rise in an overwhelming manner, destroying entire coastal cities. In fact, meteorologists have already warned of a simple fact. Any sudden deceleration of the planet would cause strong winds and incalculable storms to form in a matter of moments, completely changing the relief, climate, and stability of the continents. After all this initial force of inertia was dissipated, or rather, caused a colossal mess, another gigantic problem would arise. The absence of rotation would mean that one side of the globe would be permanently facing the sun, while the other would be plunged into total darkness. Without the rotational movement, we would no longer have the day and night cycles as we know them. Consequently, the hemisphere facing the sun would be roasted in an intense heat that could make entire regions uninhabitable, while the other side would freeze to the extreme, a true hell of two extremes. We would not have defined seasons, as there would not be enough tilt and movement to distribute sunlight in an alternating manner. This climatic chaos would practically make any form of life as we know it today unviable. Think of scorching deserts on one side, huge glaciers on the other, and the thin strip between light and shadow serving as the only possible survival corridor. It would be so surreal that probably only a few extremophilic bacteria or very hardy microscopic organisms could survive in such drastic environments. Speaking of climate, we need to understand that the strong winds we experience today, and sometimes fear when storms arise, are nothing compared to the force that would occur if the Earth were to stop. Remember, even after stopping, the atmosphere does not turn off instantly. It would continue at high speed, generating destructive wind currents, especially in areas where the surface speed was higher, near the equator. And it doesn't stop there. The ocean currents, responsible for regulating the planet's climate by transporting heat from tropical to polar regions and vice versa, would also be interrupted. The entire dynamics of the oceans, which work thanks to rotation and differences in temperature and salinity, would collapse. Huge masses of stagnant water would form in some places and exaggerated concentrations in others, causing uncontrollable tides and, once again, a scenario where large portions of land would be submerged. According to meteorologists and climate consultants, such as Francisco de Assis, from Brasilia, such an event would make the planet practically uninhabitable, since the accumulation of water in certain areas and the lack of it in others would lead to extreme droughts, uncontrolled floods, and the destruction of any type of agriculture or coastal civilization. Another little discussed but equally alarming issue is the issue of tectonic plates. Although the Earth's rotation is not the only force behind the movement of the plates, as we know that the planet's internal heat and convection in the mantle are crucial factors, such a sudden change in the balance of forces on the surface could generate a rapid and violent reconfiguration of these plates. It would be like braking a car at full speed. Everything inside it is thrown forward, but in this case, we are talking about entire continents sliding or crashing into each other, generating global-scale earthquakes, massive volcanic eruptions, and even more colossal tsunamis. In real-life scenarios, when there is even a small shift of plates, we have already witnessed enormous natural tragedies, as has happened in major earthquakes recorded in history, which were capable of changing even the axis of the planet by a few thousandths of a degree. Now, multiply this effect by thousands, and you will have an idea of what it would be like to have tectonic plates collide in a world where rotation ceased to exist overnight. Faced with so many catastrophic scenarios, it is inevitable to ask, would there be any hope for life on the planet? In such a case, we humans, and most other terrestrial species, would face conditions completely different from anything we know, from more intense solar radiation in the hemisphere permanently facing the sun, to lethal cold in the hemisphere in darkness. The biological cycles that regulate most living organisms would be devastated, since many species depend on rotation and the alternation between day and night for their vital processes, such as photosynthesis, migration, reproduction, and the search for food. There would be no more defined seasons, and agriculture as we know it would simply not be able to thrive on a still earth. Incessant winds and storms, uncontrolled droughts and floods, all occurring simultaneously, would make it virtually impossible for entire ecosystems to survive. Land and sea animals suffer from much smaller changes than this. Imagine, then, a complete disruption of the planetary rotation. Now, the burning question. Is there any chance of this happening in the near future? The expert's answer is that the possibility of the Earth suddenly stopping its rotation borders on the impossible. What actually happens, and this is a fact measured by scientists, is a gradual and tiny slowdown every century, mainly due to the gravitational pull of the Moon. This slight delay, as we said, adds about 1.7 milliseconds every 100 years to the length of our day. In this way, every few million years, the days get a little longer. But even projecting this slowdown, it would take thousands of times longer for the Earth to even come close to a rotation so slow that it ceases, and this would probably happen so gradually that life on Earth would have plenty of time to adapt if this rotation were to actually reach zero. In practice, we can be calm about the chance of a sudden stop. This possibility is more like a scene from a movie, like in The Day the Earth Stood Still. But that doesn't diminish the importance of understanding how the complex mechanisms that keep our planet habitable and balanced work. Thinking about these extreme scenarios, as frightening as they may be, also serves to remind us of how fragile and interconnected the Earth is. A small imbalance, whether in relation to rotation, climate, or ecosystem, can trigger dramatic changes, affecting various forms of life. We see this when events like El Niño or La Niña change the temperature of the oceans and cause droughts or storms in distant regions of the globe. And it's not just in the realm of science fiction that the issue of stopping or changing the planet's rotation appears. In our reality, experiments with satellites, geophysical measurements, and advanced mathematical models are always analyzing variations in the Earth's rotation and axis to better understand the climate, predict natural disasters, and even adjust GPS devices that we use daily. In short, the fact that the Earth keeps spinning at a relatively constant speed is one of the main reasons for the constancy of our lives. And if you, like me, have ever found yourself admiring the sunset and thinking about how the planet continues this gentle movement without us noticing, it is good to keep in mind. If something as simple as rotation were to suffer a sudden interruption, our entire notion of stability would disappear with it. But now I want to know, what is your opinion on this catastrophic and, at the same time, fascinating scenario? Do you think that one day we will be able to see drastic changes in the rotation of the planet over millions of years? Or do you consider that all of this is just part of a distant future that we will never witness? Leave your opinion on this subject in the comments and tell us if you have ever thought about what it would be like to live in a world that stopped spinning. And of course, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to continue diving with me into curious subjects about Earth, astronomy, and the mysteries of the universe, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell. That way, you help us grow and ensure that you won't miss any surprising stories like this one.